Hey, welcome and thank you for joining me. I want to apologize in advance for the monotone of my speech, but I was trying to make sure you could hear me clearly and effectively. So, thank you, and I hope you enjoy this session. The outcomes for today are one, I can access resources, two, I can be prepared, and three, I can understand routines are friends. Additionally, it's important to remember that pre and post holiday challenges are holidays create stress for all, teachers and students. Teachers often have seasonal affective disorder as well as students, or SAD. A barren holiday calendar can be depressing. Students, like adults, perform because of the following equation: skill times motivation equals performance. So if there is no skill, even if there is motivation, the performance is going to be poor. At the same time, if there's skill but no motivation, the performance is going to be poor. So these are things to keep in mind when considering the motivation and skill of students, particularly those with behavioral concerns. The next thing is the location of resources. So you should have received an email with attachments. And then also there are chapters you should have received from the SCM training that is provided by Dodea. If you didn't get those, please let me know and I'll make sure that you have those. Next is just a brief intervention and de-escalation process. And so the first thing that you want to do when you're looking to de-escalate behaviors is to evaluate the situation to determine the seriousness. The first type of intervention that we normally use instinctually are nonverbal interventions. And those can be things such as the look provided by the teacher, posted expectations, or proximity to the student who may be causing a disruption. Of course, the next level is verbal interventions. So we say things such as, "Is that expected?" Classroom voice, please. And "Do you need a 1 minute break?" or something of that nature in order to redirect the behavior for the student.
Hi, this is Fran. I just wanted to share a little bit more about verbal interventions. Thank you, Dr. Cook, for that, allowing me that segue into positive language. So there are times that we get caught up in a rut as educators, as parents, and we sometimes speak to the children in a manner that we feel is proactive, and in essence it's quite negative. And it's because we're in a rush or things are going on and we just say what we're thinking at that moment. One of the things that we're finding is studies are showing that we should speak to children using a positive mindset, if you would, so that we'll tell a child what we want them to do. For example, please walk, as opposed to don't run, or put your chair in, as opposed to why is that chair left out. Giving them ideas so that they're not using the positive, they're using the positive, sorry about that, instead of the negative. This way their mindset is such that when they are trying to problem solve, they look for solutions automatically, as opposed to thinking about, oh gosh, I'm going to be reprimanded, or I didn't do that correctly, something to that effect. They're using that negative mindset, and we want the children to internalize the solutions to conflicts. So it's a positive language is a good lead-in to allowing them to minimize the negative behaviors and to work in the environment so they can be productive.
Thank you, Ms. Carrera Phelps. Wonderful ideas and great resources. Hopefully, folks will take a look at those as well as the other resources that were provided. Again, I know that many of you are experienced professionals and use these types of interventions regularly, but I always think it's good to hear that these are things that are research based and are part of some programs which Dodea uses. The next thing we're going to talk about is the behavior curve and the behavior intervention curve. The big idea from this is that certain interventions are used as behaviors escalate, and that we only use verbal for those times when the child is able to rationally consider or think about what we're saying. For our children, most of the time, we don't have to be any more concerned than verbal interventions. They are the most common interventions used, and behaviorally, that's pretty much where our children are in our school. At a later date, we can go into more detail about this behavior cycle if you wish and discuss some of the processes that take place. The next thing we're going to talk about are the chapters that I sent you from the course that I have taken related to students with emotional behavior disorders as well as ADHD and other problematic behaviors. Two big takeaways from these is one, the relationship that is built with the child, and two, that the routines and expectations are in place consistently, and that the child understands what those expectations and routines are and can implement those routines. Again, like the behavior escalation curve, we can spend some time talking about what these documents say in more depth if you would like, and we can look at other resources that are available to discuss how to address behavioral concerns. We can do that at another date. I think the best way to do it is that persons read and develop their own takeaways from these materials, and then develop the questions they might have for them, and we can discuss. The last few points we have are, one, to remember that routines are our friends. Routines allow us to shift to automatic when we need to, and allow us to deal with problem behavior or behaviors of concern without much disruption. So again, remember to stick to those routines. Also ask for help. I think sometimes we think we can't ask for help. So there's a lot of stakeholders who can help us, including parents, but also folks in the administration, folks in the school like me, your team, persons at the field office, and folks at the district level who can help out with dealing with problematic behaviors of concerns. And also just look at your lessons. You know, sometimes that's the best behavior management tool. Whatever that lesson may be, it's something that perhaps can be revised in some way to incorporate some behavioral intervention. Thank you for participating with us in this, and hopefully this was a useful way to use this medium and to use this time that we had with each other.